Hi everyone, my name is Phil and welcome to Phil Does 3D. I'm a multimedia and 3D artist and I stream on Twitch weekdays from 5 PM Pacific time in the US, 11 AM in Australia, and it's back to 1 AM in the UK because you guys have started daylight savings. Now next week, for the guys watching from Australia, we finish daylight savings, so the start time will go back to 10 AM instead of 11 AM. It won't change for you guys in the US because I work on US time, so it's always 5 PM for you. It won't change for you guys in the UK because it's always 1 AM for you now. It'll only change for the guys in Australia. I know it all gets a bit confusing. So if you're not sure, if you go to my website, phildoes3d.com, and go to my social media tab up here, I have a Pacific time thing down here under Twitch. Whenever it hits 5 PM here, you'll know I'm streaming. If it's on a Monday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday, barring any unforeseen problems like Twitch having problems or my internet having problems. So if you're not sure and you need, because you're not in either the United States, Australia or the UK, because they're the only 3 time zones I work to, just go to my website and you can check it out there to see when it hits 5 PM Pacific time when I'll be streaming. Okay, and good evening Sniper Echo, it's always good to see you. How's things? Okay, so to bring everybody up to speed, what we're doing is we're working on an Art Deco building, interior and exterior, that we're going to be creating in Unreal Engine 4.15.1. We're updating the assets in 3D Studio Max. Now I made this a fly-through of this building in UDK in 2011 and I'm updating it now for the new version of the engine, and while I'm doing that I'm redoing some of the textures on some of the assets or props, whatever you want to call them, and also making a couple of them a bit higher poly to take into account the fact that graphics cards have gotten a lot better over the last 6 years. And memory on consoles as well has increased. So let's jump into Max because I really want to get this square banister done today. I want to bring it into Unreal. There's only a couple of things that we have left to do on it. Let's isolate this actually. I'm going to select those, deselect that, and go into isolation mode here in Max. Now remember guys too, if you've got any questions or anything you're not sure about, please feel free to pop into chat and ask me. It doesn't have to be regarding 3D Studio Max. It can be about 3D in general. I've been working in the industry for more than 10 years. 3D, that is. I work in architectural visualization at the moment. I've worked for game studios in the past and I've done some film and cinema work. So if you want to pop into chat and ask me a question regarding 3D or 3D art, please feel free. If you want to pop in and say hello, then that's always welcome. If you just want to watch, that's completely fine. So what I want to do here is we've done most of the work on this central banister section, and this is a banister that sits between the upper and the lower floor with the center open here because we have 2 large Art Deco chandeliers hanging above it. That's what we will have when we rebuild the Art Deco building in Unreal. And we've done most of it now. We were just adding a bit more detailing to the sides yesterday. All we have left to do now is I need to texture up this wrought ironwork, which is what goes in between these cutout sections here where there's no geometry. And the reason I'm not including it with the model is because having it separate like this, we can instance it and that'll cut down on our polygon count and our memory count. So you could do the same thing with these straight banister sections, but they're pretty low poly anyway, and it's more work to rebuild all of those in Unreal as opposed to just leaving it all as one piece like this. If they were high poly like this is, then I'd suggest you separate it out so you could instance that geometry around, which is what we're going to do here. And the only other thing I wanted to do was these corner columns. I really don't like the way that that the railings butt up against that textured inlay. That looks really weird. So I want to change that to a straight texture. I'll keep the textured inlays on the sides, the 2 outer corners, but the 2 inner corners I want to just make those plain wood. It would just look more natural. You'd never have decorative inlay being covered by half of the railing like that. That just, you would never find that in real life. So we're going to fix that up. Let's do that first. I think it should be pretty easy and quick to do. Just trying to think the best way to do this. I think the best way will be to, I'm going to separate the 4 objects. So when I mean separate, I'm going to detach them, so they're 4 separate objects. We're going to be reattaching all these pieces together before we export it into Unreal. This is just so I can fix up these texture problems here. I don't want to detach this clone. Okay, trying to see what we've got here. We've got some corner pieces by the look of it. That's okay, we'll just detach this last one. Alright, so now we have 4 separate pieces. Let's work with this first piece here in the corner. It's an edit poly. I'm just going to throw down an unwrap UVW. I'm going to open my editor here. And again, you see yesterday, I think, or the day before, I changed the size of my dialog box here, and I said if you go to options and save current settings, it will keep it. Max will remember that size you set here for your box. So if I made it bigger or smaller and saved it, every time I open my unwrap UVW, it would remember that. But it only remembers it on a new UVW unwrap. I'm going to be copying this one across to the other 4, and when I do that, you'll see Max forgets the size. So again, that's a bug that's been in Max since day dot. It's always been there. What we're going to do here is I'm going to select these faces on the inside corners that I want to change. So these 2 here. I'm going to leave the other 2 the same as they are because I don't want to change those. I do want to turn off my map seams. I really don't like that. So we're going to keep the decorative inlays on the outer corners, but we're going to change it for the inner corners here. Now I'm going to go up to my tools menu and break my UVs. If I don't break them before I move them, I'm going to get stretching. They're going to be attached together. And now I'm going to scale it down, and this is the texture we're using for that inlay, and you'll notice it's the same texture we're using for the wood panels on the walls that we're going to be putting up. Again, we're doing this to save on memory space in the game engine, because reusing the texture, if you can, is always a good way to go. I'm going to scale this down. Down, and I'm going to scale it in, and again I scale non-uniformly in Max by holding the shift key down with the scale command. You can hold the shift key with the move command to constrain the move in one direction as well. I'm going to find a position on the texture here that just has the plain wood. I think that just the plain wood colour would be fine for what we want. Deselect that. Now I'm just going to rotate around here and make sure that all blends together and it looks okay. And like I said, I think just having a plain wood colour on where the banister railings meet those side columns looks more natural and better. You never have that decorative work in there. Now that we've done that one column, we can copy our unwrap UVW from the modify stack. Again, remember, I always fall into this trap where I'm trying to select an object, but Max won't let me, and that's because we're still engaged in our unwrap UVW, so make sure you turn that off. Let's paste our UVs in here. Now you can see what's happened here. It's the column is actually rotated around slightly differently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my pivot hierarchy and center my pivot. Make sure my angle snap is turned on. I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. Let's just swing around to make sure that's right. Yep, that's fine. That just saves me move. I could have fixed that by moving the UVs, but it's quicker and easier to do it that way. Let's do this one over on this corner. I'll just paste our UV unwrap again. It looks like with this one it's maybe 180 degree. Yep. Sniper Echo says, I think that you are correct about the green in the last image. Here's your latest version. Let's have a look. Sniper Echo is working on an environment that he's bringing into the Unreal Engine. So he's created a mesh for an environment, for a landscape, and he's going to bring this into Unreal. Okay. This was the old one, and so hang on, I'm getting confused. Is this the new one, Sniper Echo, or the old one? This is the first link from your post. Let me just copy this second link. This was the old one, I'm assuming you're saying? I remember the orangey colour here. Although it looks a bit less orange than it was. I'm just wanting to know which one is the new one. Are you telling me this is the new one or the old one? I can see between these two. This looks more like the one you showed me yesterday. It's a lot lighter. The first one is the new image. It looks dark on my screen. Okay, alright. Again, yeah, that's the one thing I was going to say about the image I'm looking at here. It does look very dark. I see you brought up a lot more of the orange in the landscape, which is nice because that better blends now with that light that you've got coming through the sky. And it's hard for me to tell because it is so dark on my screen, but it does look like you've got a bit more variation happening in the dirt here, which is great. Because we were saying yesterday, just having a little bit more variation in the dirt colour here would look good. Just having like a second darker version in parts here and there would look nice. Yep, my only concern, like I said, I'll trust your judgment. My screen is calibrated correctly, but it does look very dark on my screen. My only criticism is, yeah, it's dark. It's very dark. It looks great, and like I said, I really do like the fact that you brought in more of a yellow and orange through the ground here to better blend with that light. And it all really does depend too on the time of day you're going for and the look that you're going for in whatever game you're making here for the environment. Because I mean, having a dark environment is not necessarily a bad thing. You're not using a vignette or anything, are you? Yeah, it looks great. I like the colour. The only thing, and it may be because the image is so dark here that I'm picking up on, is maybe a bit too green in the sky. And then again, like I said, though, that could be because it's looking really dark on my screen. Just a little greenish. Maybe just take a touch of the green out of the sky. Don't take it all out, but just desaturate the sky green a little. You know, in Photoshop or whatever you're using to do your color correction, go into the green channel and just pull back on the green a little bit for the sky. But I really do like the fact that you brought up more of that orange color in the ground, because that really helps to bring up the dirt. But yeah, and it does look dark on my screen, I have to admit. It almost looks like you've got a vignette happening, a really large vignette. But it's looking very nice, very nice. Yeah, I really do like the color effect on the ground. Yeah, and again, I've noticed too with my stream, when it goes up to Twitch, it does darken my stream a bit from what I see on my in my OBS. So I don't know what Twitch does when it's doing its transcoding to broadcast to you guys, but I've noticed that my streams do tend to look a bit dark. I should see a lot more detail in the foreground. Okay. Yeah, I can basically, not just black, but basically from here to here, I can't see anything but mainly black. The same from here to about here. And here to here is black. And maybe from about here to here is all black. Like I said, it almost looks like you've got a vignette going on, a really large vignette, because it's pretty black in these corners. I can't see any detail at all down here. Or down here, really. I can see a little bit of detail, but not much. Again, though, do keep in mind, guys, that, like I said, my stream, Twitch does darken my stream a little bit. If you know my intro screen where the music plays in that 15-minute countdown, that background that you see behind the robot that's animating, opening and closing, that's actually that's a dark grey background, but I've noticed when I play back my VOD broadcasts on Twitch, that background looks black. It's not black, it's actually grey. Really dark grey, but grey. So that's how I know that Twitch is darkening up my stream. So it's probably not as dark as you're seeing it, Sniper Echo, here, because Twitch is darkening it slightly again, but it is still pretty dark. Yeah, you guys, if you're doing color work, you really should have to make sure your monitors are calibrated. Particularly contrast and brightness, because that's what will affect this type of thing where it gets really dark. And a lot of monitors, like I have a Samsung monitor over here that on my second PC that is calibrated, but it's not. It's an 8-bit panel. I work on a 10-bit panel, a properly calibrated 10-bit panel. And I've noticed with the Samsung that is calibrated, but not professionally calibrated, that the brightness is lighter than what it is on a calibrated screen. So by default, monitors, when you buy them that haven't been calibrated correctly, it's almost like they've got too much brightness and not enough contrast in their image, so they're brighter. When you buy them from the shop, they're brighter than they should be, basically. Which is probably, if you're working with a non-calibrated screen, this will look brighter because it's not calibrated. But on my screen, it does look very dark. I can see everything in this image. I can see very little in this image on the corners anyway. But you know that Sniper Echo. So yeah, guys, work with a calibrated screen. It's really important, particularly if you're working for clients and you're doing color correction work. A client will not be happy with you, and they will think you are very unprofessional if you're giving them work that you've done on an uncalibrated screen, because it's going to look completely different when they view it on their screen. And they're going to be viewing it on screens that are properly calibrated. So it's particularly important if you're doing print work, because the printer is going to be very unhappy with you if you say, well, that's not the color that I want. And he shows it to you on his monitor and it's exactly the same color as what he's printed out, but it looks different on your monitor. And the print run will have to be redone. He'll either do it for you for nothing. He may do it for nothing once, just as a gesture of goodwill, but if he has to do more than one rerun, he's not going to be happy about it, and you're going to keep paying until you get the color correct. So make sure your monitors are calibrated correctly. It's really important. Let's get back to analysing the image. Like I said, I really do like the fact that you brought up more of the orange in the ground. I think that looks really good. Again, it's hard for me to critique it being so dark, but the only thing that catches my eye is the fact, apart from it being dark, is there's a little bit too much green, I think, in the sky. And again, it really depends on what look you're going for. If it's an alien planet, or, you know, it really has to go into context. But from a realistic point of view, I'd say that there's a bit too much green in the sky. That's really my only critique as far as color correction goes. It's the sky, just a bit too much green. I like the orange in the ground. It better matches the light shaft that's coming down from the sky. It looks great. I like the texturing work. I particularly like the clouds. They're harder for me to see here, so I'm just going to jump back to your old version. I really like the skybox you're using here. It's very nice. yeah. So my only critique is the color, the green color in the sky. Apart from that, it's looking really nice. I really like I said, the orange in the ground. It just does look a bit too much. Yeah, Sniper Echo says the green is a bit too much in the sky. Yeah, and me looking at it here, first thing I notice when I look at the image is this green through here, through there, and through here. And so yeah, like I said, depending on how you're creating this and what program you're using, if this is Unreal, I'm assuming Unreal 4, you may have to alter the green in the texture you're using for your skybox. Maybe just pull it back a bit in Photoshop in the green channel. That's probably the easiest way to go. I don't know if you're using any post-processing filter on it. If you are, then maybe you could do it there. You could do it in post-process in Unreal, pull out some of the green that way. This depends on what your workflow is. But it's looking very nice. I do like the texturing work here on the ground, the rocks. And like I said, I really do like the fact that you brought in more orange into the ground. So I look forward to seeing some more work done on it. It looks great though, it's really good. Alright, let's get this done. Let's rotate, before we rotate it, let's make sure that we center our pivot. And we're going to rotate it 180 degrees. Let's get this last one over here in the corner done. We'll paste our unwrap down. And it looks like this one's going to have to be rotated as well. 90 degrees, I think. Yep, 90 degrees works. And that should be good. Now, it's just fixed that problem in the corners. It was really bothering me, having that decorative inlays in those corners, because it just didn't look right. Alright, so this part of the asset pretty much done. The only thing we have left to do now is to retexture this in Substance Painter, because I really don't like this texture, and we've retextured the wrought ironwork gates that we're using in the entry of the Art Deco building, so we'll retexture this to match it. Before we do that though, let's attach all of this together. Let's start with this base, I think. We're going to call this one, before we call it anything, we'll do the attach. So I'm going to collapse my stack. Just before I do my attach, I'm going to save my file, because you never know with Mac, sometimes it can behave very strangely, particularly when you start attaching geometry together. Alright, let's do it. Let's attach all of these pieces together now. So we'll start with the base here. Now we'll start to just work our way around the model, making sure we get everything attached together. And as you know, if you hover your mouse over, you'll know when something is not attached. Like here, it's all attached, but as soon as I move it over these railing sections, they're not attached, so let's attach them. Again, I could go in and attach list, but I don't trust Max's attach list, because like it can really mess your texturing up. So I prefer to do it by hand. It takes a little bit longer, but you're less likely to run into a problem. And it's nice to be able to work on a project here that I'm not on a deadline for. stuff I do for the studio, we have clients and they want it by a specific date. So I don't get to relax while I'm working most of the time. I'm under the gun. So it's nice to be able to work on something where I'm not having to rush. Because I love what I do and I like to take my time and enjoy what I do. I still do when I do work for the studio, but I still enjoy it. It's just a little bit more stressful, that's all. So it's nice to hang out with you guys and do some work at a nice leisurely pace. That's probably what I'll be doing this weekend. Again, I've got some work I have to catch up on for the studio, so my weekend will be taken up doing that. I'm just lucky they haven't sent me off interstate, which they do occasionally do, because we do a lot of work for clients interstate as well. We do some stuff for mining companies as well, because I do photogrammetry. Mining companies will use photogrammetry to get volumes of stockpiles, like so let's use iron ore for an example. If they've got a large iron ore pile and they want to know exactly the volume of iron ore in that pile, then you can use photogrammetry to do that. So we do occasionally do work for mining companies as well. And when I do that, I have to fly interstate because most of the mining companies aren't in the state I live in. They're on the other side of the country. All right, now I think we have everything attached together. And I can tell what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move my model. And if I see everything is moved and nothing's left behind, I know it's good. It's going to undo it. So we have that all attached together and ready to go. Let's look at these two pieces here now. They have a texture assigned to them. I've noticed with this texture, it has an alpha. And that causes all sorts of problems when I bring it into Substance Painter. Substance has been freaking out with the alpha. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to assign a plain color to this, which is what I do when I want to render out a material ID map. I'm not going to be... I was going to say I'm not going to do a material ID map, but it'd be nice to pick up some of that gold color through here. Because remember, we use that gold paint through these small circles here, and we also used it on the decorative ironwork. Let's just jump into Unreal here quickly. We also used it in this wrought ironwork for the gateway in the entrance down the bottom of the stairs. It might be nice to pick some of that up throughout these stairwells. Again, that just helps to keep everything looking consistent and as if it fits in with each other. When you're designing your assets for your games or for whatever, rendering whatever, you have to think a bit like an interior decorator, where you want to try and pick up small details you've used in other parts of the building in the assets that you're populating your building with. So we've picked up on the gold here in those corner pieces, and it might be nice to pick up on the gold also here on these swirls. And the easiest way again to do that, so that we only have one material and not two, is to assign material IDs to this, and we may do that, I think. Let's assign just a plain color first though, because I want to remove this texture and replace it with something that we do in Substance Painter. So we're just assigning a plain colored texture at the moment. Now I'm going to go into sub-object mode again. I'm going to select these swirls. These are two separate objects. Now, again, this is done this way because you can halve your polygon count by doubling it up like this, instead of saving out these two together, because they're exactly the same. They're just the same object placed next to each other. And if you were doing a rendering, that wouldn't be a problem because we don't have to worry about polygon counts. But if we're working with a game engine, to reduce the poly count, we can work with just one of these and just double it up when we go to place it around our banister here. And that'll halve our polygon count to begin with. Even though we're going to be instancing these two all the way around the outside, we can create one, instance that, and then instance both of those to populate our banister here. And we're really only using that many polygons that are in half of that model piece. So we may do that, I think. Let me just attach those swirls. I'm going to select them and assign a separate plain color. Alright. Now let's do our unwrap. And again, I'm going to turn off map seams because I really hate that green glow. We'll open our UVW editor. We don't have to worry about picking a texture because it's just a plain color. Let's we could probably get away with a box mapping on this. Let's try a box mapping. Let's just do a flattened mapping. I want to see what that's going to give us. Yeah, no, I prefer to do a box mapping. I'm just going to move that out of the way for a moment. Now, these little bits in the UV here that are left over are tailings from these swirls. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to close that down quickly and go into my front viewport here. I'm just going to turn off my unwrap for a moment and go back down to my edit poly. This is just to do some cleanup here on this model. I'm going to go into polygon mode. I'm just going to select everything in here. Deselect that central rod. Now, yeah, the other problem I think we've got here is, again, we've got this problem where the verts aren't welded. So, let's fix that up to begin with. Now, I should have done that before I did my detach, but we could probably get around it anyway. So I'm selecting all of my vertices, making sure that ignore backfacing is turned off. I'm going to open up my weld dialog box here, and I'm just going to go below 0.4, just below 0.5 on the weld. If I go too high, I'm going to weld everything into one blob. But if we're careful and we don't go too high here on our weld, we can get it to weld together without destroying the geometry. Let's see if that has fixed that problem. Now you see all of my pieces, we can select them as one object, so that's good. That's not what we want. We want to go back to our front viewport, back into face mode, or polygon mode here. Again, we want to select everything. I want to deselect that central rung. And I'm going to, so I've only got the floating pieces that are in, that really should be attached to the scrolls here. I'm going to detach them. Alright. Now, just before I forget to reattach them, I'm going to jump back into my front viewport. Come on, what are you doing? I'm going to move this out of the way really quickly. Okay. I'm selecting those leftover pieces and those scrolls. Going to deselect the scroll. So I just have those leftover pieces selected. They're the pieces that should have been attached to the scroll to begin with. So I'm going to attach them now. Alright, so we should have fixed that problem now. Let's jump back into our frame, back up to our unwrap. Let's open up our editor. And we're just going to have to redo our box mapping. Now you see we've fixed the problem of those little leftover pieces that were floating in the middle of our UV map. So let's just move those out of the way, just for now. Let's select our scrolls. And throw another unwrap UVW down. Okay, now this one, let's do a normal mapping, and we're going to do we'll try a back front to begin with. No. We'll do a normal mapping. Let's try a left right. Okay, that'll work. Again, I'm going to turn off these map seams. Okay, so we have our scrolls mapped out and our border mapped out, our frame. We have to make sure they're both in the 0 to 1 space though, so let's scale these down a little bit. Let's move them up a little bit. Let's move these second ones up closer to the first. Now I could overlap them, but like I say, I'm taking it into a 3D paint program. You don't want to be overlapping your UVs. So don't overlap if you're going to be going in into a 3D paint program. Okay, I'm just going to collapse that now down to an edit poly. Go back into my frame here and open up my editor. Let's scale these down. Now I'm going to leave them outside the 0 to 1 space just at the moment. I'm going to collapse my stack. Now I'm going to attach those scrolls again. Throw down another unwrap. Turn off my map seam. Open my editor. Now we can see both of our UVs together, so we can position them a little bit better. Let's select the outer frame itself. I'm going to scale it up just a little bit so I can get it as large as I can within that UV 0 to 1 space without overlapping. That should be good. We'll make sure we're within 0 to 1 though, don't go outside that line. And for these pieces, let's rotate them around about 90 degrees. And we can pop them over here in this corner. That should work for what we want. Alright. So now we have our model here with two different coloured plain textures assigned to it. Let's render out a material ID map. So we're going to do render to texture. Just give Max a moment to think about that. We're going to be using our existing map channel 1. We just want to add a diffuse map. We're going to render it at 2K. Again, go large and then reduce later on if you need to. Let's set our path here. Let's go to our exports folder. Again, let's create a new folder so we keep everything nice and organized. And we're going to call this one Square Railings Ironwork. Actually, let's just call it Square Rail Ironwork. We don't want our folder name to be too huge. just going to copy that name as well. Okay, go into that folder and we're going to call it Square Rail Ironwork underscore ID because it's an material ID map. I'm going to save it as a PNG file. And we're going to render that out.
Between you, between me, and search for an answer. Sure to die away, even though it takes courage to capture a dancer.
I'm going to collapse my stack. Now I'm doing this, I have to watch what I'm doing here because I've noticed that the material ID here is the color is incorrect. It's still assigned to the frame, so I'm just going to detach that. So all I'm left with now is the scroll section in the middle. Just going to reassign that color again. Now I can reattach the frame. Max has just gotten confused with my material color, so I'm just going to reassign the color to that frame. Okay, and we're just going to do another render to texture to fix that small problem I just noticed before with the leftover pieces.